Next one is the WMDLS reconciliation. Who wants to, Della, I assume you want to take this lead on it?
Yes, as you guys know, the WMDLS special assessment came to a close. I'm just gonna read this. In May 2018, the board was made aware of a deficiency in the WMDLS fund. At that time, I requested a transfer of funds from the general fund or the road replacement fund to correct the deficiency. At that time, the board requested that I ask the auditors for the proper method of correcting and the shortage, and Paul Olson, our insurance agent, to see if there is an emissions clause to cover it. I believe Lloyd was the one that recommended that. I've done both. On May 30th, 2018, I sent an email to Jonathan at Tobin and Company. They are our auditors. And requested counsel on how to handle the deficiency. I didn't get a response from him. Keep in mind that starting in May is when they start their audits of townships, and they are quite busy. However, during our June audit, which is less than 30 days away, I met with the auditor, Lynn Cruz. We sat down in my office for about a half an hour, and we discussed it. I showed her all the paperwork, showed her what happened. And her suggestion was that we transfer the funds from an appropriate fund, such as the road repair and replace, because it's in concerns with roads. With the reasoning that these funds had been set aside for roads rather than the general fund. The amount is a minimal amount considering the amount that we actually refunded, over $320-some thousand in refunds. I also sent an email to Paul Olson concerning the errors and emissions question. He did not respond to me, but he did respond to the clerk. And maybe Cheryl could tell us about that tonight, what he said. Her and I have not gotten together to be able to go over that. But it was my impression that this does not fall under the errors and emissions clause. Did I get that right, Cheryl?
Yeah, he said that it wouldn't fall under errors and omissions. He offered that it could be done under the public official bond, is all he said.
Okay. So, just for a brief, I know you guys already know this because we've been through it, I think, twice before this. How the deficiency came to be. There were two parcels. Keep in mind, we had, what was it, 400, almost 400 checks.
Something like that.
So there was 400 parcels, and two of the parcels had typo errors. Just simply, a number got dropped in one, and the other one, it was, instead of $1,556, whatever it was, the one before it was a 700 standard number, and it just got to set. Right, so those two parcels were shorted what the refund should have been. Well, at the end of the day, when you look at 400 parcels and you've got $3,000 still sitting there, and you've gone through the list 3 or 4 times and you're not seeing it, you think it's possible that it is a percentage calculation error, because we were dealing with so much. So what we did is we divided that $3,254 amongst all the parcels, including those two that were shorted. And that's what it was.
So in other words, everybody got back a little bit more
They
than
got
they should.
$3.15 or something like that more than what they were supposed to,
Right.
when it all came out. So I guess,
But yet the two parcels that were shorted that has to be corrected.
and we did correct.
So, but the money has gone out.
Yes,
So the money is not left in that account to pay those two parcels.
we have
So-
checks that are outstanding. I think the next page down shows those outstanding checks. If all of those outstanding checks clear, I will be negative in that account.
Oh, those
So-
are checks that haven't cleared yet?
Those are checks that haven't cleared. These are people I'm having trouble finding.
Right, yeah.
You know, because they sold the property, but it was during the time that they would have been eligible for the refund. The new owners aren't eligible for the refund, according to what the state statute says.
Right.
Those are the ones that total up to be 7,000 something?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
So there's $4,329.47 in the account, but there's checks that, if Della can find the people, of $7,557.63. So if all those checks get cashed, there's gonna be a deficit of $3,228.16. So what Della is asking for is that we either just take that out of general fund contingency or something like that, or this road repair replacement fund, and just make the WMDLS account whole,
yeah,
so that it's, when the final checks come in, it's gonna be zero.
correct.
Would it be more appropriate to take it out of the road thing?
See, that was the auditor's opinion, because that's money we've set aside for roads. The special assessment was roads.
That's why I wonder if it should.
I think so too.
And then it's tracking, right?
I think you called an attorney.
I wanna put this in perspective. When this, refund issue started, I asked the board, and I asked MTA, and I asked the auditors, and I asked the assessor, how do you do refunds for special assessments? Because nobody in the county could give me an answer. The treasurer says at Grand Traverse County, you need to, just do the math. So I did the math. I looked the law up, I found out what you had to do, and I did the math. And it was a lot of work. It took months to put all this stuff together. Because it was not just, oh, you paid this much money in special assessment. No, because people bought, sold, split, combined, and it all affected what their special assessment was.
There's people that got discounts for their 15-year clause that was.
Boy, that was another argument. We went on what you
I know.
named, okay? That's another argument. But, you know, I had issues. I had real issues because, in the special assessment program, the acreage, the amount still owed, the amount paid didn't always follow where the new stuff went. So there was a lot of research. And if refunds were given early because somebody overpaid or something, it was never corrected in the special assessment program. So it took me probably 4 or 5 months to straighten out all the technical issues. And I don't think we could have paid an auditor to do it. She told me it would have, because I said, what would you have charged us to go through and do these? Because honestly, I didn't want to touch it. It came way before me and there was issues. And she said that, well, we charge $150 an hour and we would bill you by the hour. Yeah, so, if we had to pay somebody to do this process for us, it would have cost us a whole lot more than that $3,000. With that being said, that is an error that was made in my office. But I am human.
No.
It's a lie.
I was just wondering, Della, on this error, I just need to be educated more on it.
Sure.
Now, you paid out a refund to an owner that, did they sell the land? And,
Well, what the law says is that by a certain date, when you close your special assessment, whoever owns that property on that date
right,
is the one that's due the refund.
okay,
So, we have people that sold before that date and people that sold after that date. The new owners are after that date. Part of what you don't see here is we had an update from the county from equalization before we did this. And it changed all that, it changed many of the names and addresses. So then we had to go back through, when we found that out, thank God it only affected 12 parcels. We were able to put stop payments on 6 of them that didn't get cashed. And then the other 6, we had to hunt those people down and say, you gotta give me back the money. And we did, we got the money back.
Well, I did research on that fund quite a bit. I looked into it pretty deep, and I see where an error can easily be made. I mean, it is definitely an absolute mess.
The refund book, the copies of the checks is this thick. So,
Plus with owners coming and going,
yeah, it
and
was tough.
dates, and I mean, that's really the issue, isn't it? I mean, somebody moved
Yeah, I had one gentleman that sold a house,
and they didn't return
sold a
it.
house, but he sold, before the date, and he purchased a house in Wetwater Township, same special assessment, after the date. He was entitled to none of the refunds. Try to explain that to him. That was hard.
So when you issue the refund, does it just go straight from you to the person, or does it go through somewhere else in the,
No, our township here cuts the check
okay?
out of the WMDLS fund,
Mm-hmm.
and, it goes directly to the property owner.
The only thing that I disagree on, and you know, it's just my input, is the fact that I think it should come out of the general fund and not the road, because it's a clerical error, and it should just be pulled from the general fund and not robbed from a fund that money is already stipulated for.
Well, it's not robbed in either
Uh-huh.
case, okay? And maybe, like you said, that's an opinion, and we kinda had that opinion too, until the auditor said she believes it can come from that road fund, because that's what we're actually setting money aside for.
I'm not gonna, challenge an auditor, that's for sure.
Well, I, like I said, I sat with her for a half an hour in my office going over everything, showing her the books, showing her what happened.
How often has this happened with you, Della?
Never,
There you go.
never, and I have agonized
You
over
know,
this.
everybody makes mistakes, and, you know, we're all human, so, you know, it is what it is. It was, you know, in retrospect, it wasn't a lot of money, you know?
Not when you compare.
It could have been a $35,000 mistake, or a
No.
$350,000 mistake, you know, but it's just,
No.
at the end of the day, everybody makes mistakes, everybody, so.
And like I said, this is like the 3rd time this has come before the board, so it's not like we're trying to hide anything.
What are we looking for here?
A motion.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to transfer $3,228.16 from the road replacement fund to the WMDLS fund.
I will second that. Does that have to be a roll call?
Yeah, it does.
When you're ready.
Hubble,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Pop is absent. Bennett,
Yes.
Goss, yes.
Any more on that?
No.
Alright, next one. How do we wanna handle this one here? Standalone storage buildings, temporary uses. You can see what's there before us.
Well, I know Lindsay has some concerns. My first question is, I don't understand how a standalone storage building is different than an accessory structure. I mean, a structure, the definition proposed is a structure such as a garage, shed, or pole building used for storage of personal property such as vehicles, equipment, boats, ORVs, or personal belongings. I mean, isn't that an accessory structure?
Yes.
So I'm not, it's,
Standalone would tell me that it was, there was no no main structure to stand with.
right, but an accessory structure is not allowed on a parcel without what is it, Lindsay? A primary use?
Permit.
So are we proposing here that a standalone storage building be allowed on a parcel without a primary use?
That's
Because
what's
the
being
person
proposed here.
who has been in here asking me whether this is on the agenda yet, wants to put a quote, standalone storage building on a vacant parcel.
That he just bought.
For his own use or for,
No, for
I
his
don't
own
know.
use, for his toys. Here's the thing,
I don't know why he flags me that.
the person is Tom Cosgrove. He bought land on Bunker Hill Road, Jack Frost sold property, and now he wants to he's put up signs, no trespassing, everywhere. And now he wants to put a storage building on there without a home. And my opinion on storage buildings without homes, I don't like the idea, I'll be honest, I don't like the idea because I think it draws in crime. I think people start living in them, and that becomes a hazard. The guy next to you, he sells his property, somebody comes in, they put up a $300,000 house, and they find somebody in a pole barn living next to them. What do you think that does to their property values? They should have protections. I think you should also take a look at, what the rest of the county's doing. Nobody's doing this. And there's a reason for it. I mean, if it was such a good thing, everybody'd be doing it.
They're doing the UP.
Exactly, Paul.
But don't we already
Thank
have
you.
some?
They do a vacation areas a lot.
No, you bring up a good point that way. I mean,
And this
I
is
see what
being
you're
brought
saying.
about by one individual pushing it behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do something like that, he wants to change something like that, he should pay for it.
See, I just think what's gonna happen is that we're gonna have people in here, the zoning administrator's gonna get inundated with people that say, I wanna put up a personal storage building.
We have people with storage.
And then the person driving down the road is gonna say, well, look, there's
That
an
was a
accessory
proposed
structure
ordinance.
on the lot without
But
a
it was
primary
was never
use.
in
Why,
there.
I want one of
It's a
those
similar structure.
on my
So-
vacant
so
land.
you get up
What's
and
that?
set up.
I mean, when you drive down the road and you see a vacant piece of property and it's got a standalone storage building on it, how do you know it's not an accessory? Well, we know it's not an accessory structure because those aren't allowed, but I mean, to me, it's the same thing. I don't know what is the planning commission thinking, Lloyd? I'm trying to understand how they see this different than an accessory structure, or are they just trying to legalize accessory structures and calling them something else?
That's what it sounds like to me. It's an end run.
So, I mean, is that what, and the temporary uses thing, I guess I'm not really following that. I think that's separate from this, but anyways, I'm not following what the planning commission,
What qualifies it to not be an accessory structure? I mean, I know that sounds like a simple question, but I'm saying like, a lot of people are building these big structures and they're putting a living quarters in the corner of it, you know,
That's what
inside.
we're saying.
I mean, then is it an accessory structure, or is, you know, a lot of people, I know they're doing it, I have a brother that's a builder. He just bought 10 acres over, in Clearwater, or over there, Rapid City Road, off from Torch Lake Road, and he bought 10 acres, and there's 2 5-acre parcels, and he built big pole building, put in living quarters in each one of them.
sure.
Does that make it no
Does the
more?
health department know about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
so they must allow that,
They allow that.
people to be living in pole barns.
Did that help you?
Fancy ones. You know
Well,
what I mean?
at what point does a
Right.
fancy pole barn actually become a living structure,
Right,
not a pole?
yeah, that's a good question.
I think part of this. was-
That's the question I'm actually asking, you know, I mean,
You've seen this pole barn up here on Oak Lake Road, that brown one that sits back?
mhm.
Do you know somebody was living in there?
Where's this
I
dog?
believe it.
Ken,
Ken Podleski?
yeah, he was living in there.
He was?
Yeah,
Oh.
until he accumulated so much stuff he couldn't live in there anymore.
The other thing.
That's where he lives, that was his
What-
private, he's got 100% PRV, that's on that pole barn, because that's his principal residence.
But he doesn't live there.
Not anymore,
No,
Right.
but he always did.
but he did.
So, I mean,
But that was before we put that in place.
what I'm worried about is creating issues for the zoning administrator. You know, when somebody comes in, how is she gonna, you know, if somebody says, oh, well, I'm gonna put up a personal storage building. Well, it looks like an accessory structure. I mean, you know, our personal storage buildings, okay, it says you can't live in it, but we all know that people even take houses and put extra bedrooms in it after the assessor's done and the health
That's
department's
stuff
done.
that we're not seeing.
All that.
When you
Right.
want them to put up a pole barn with no primary use, no home on it, just a pole barn, they're either one, creating a possible police problem, because they're gonna get broken into. So you're bringing that element into your township even more. Or, they're gonna start living in it.
Well, I think Lindsay had some questions, so I don't know if you wanna let her, she's looked through it, and
I think-
she has some issues, or?
I think, yeah, I do, but I think we ought to let Lloyd
Lloyd.
answer, because you posed your question to him.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Some of the things the PC was talking about was more in the recreation area, maybe considering it there, because that's what that is, it's a recreation area, and a lot of times pole barns are for equipment to be stored in.
Oh, hell
And
no.
another one was off the lakes, people with properties that are adjoining or across the street being able to put something there to put their boats in and that kind of stuff.
People already do that. They come to the CBA. And I said, oh, hell no on the recreation, because if I can't put a house, unless I got 5 acres, I sure don't want them putting
Yeah.
an accessory structure that they're gonna call a storage barn.
That's a
We
good
gotta
point.
take care of this.
So while you fix that, then we'll talk.
That's on the agenda for
Del-
the next
Del-
planning commission meeting, Bill.
Dallas has a right to be hot with that, because that got snuck in years ago by some ex-lawyers that we had here, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we should let Lindsay come up and give her opinion too, her thoughts on it.
Alright, I will be brief. I echo the same sentiments as what's the difference between that and accessory structure. I think maybe the definition would need to include some language. A structure such as a garage shed or pole building used for storage on a parcel that does not have a residential unit already established, used for the storage of vehicles, equipment, boats, or RVs, personal belongings. Building may not be used as a dwelling, like we said, that's hard to monitor. Perhaps there needs to be language that they cannot hook up to water or sewer. But then again, after it's built, how are we in control of that without doing site inspections? Buildings shall not be used for profit, I agree with that. I'm hesitant when we get to language in the R1, R2, and R3 districts. I would tread cautiously on that. As Della mentioned, it's not allowed in other townships. I did some research. From what I found, just doing a quick internet search, Blair Township, no. Acme Township, no. Garfield Township, no. East Bay, no. Peninsula, no. Owners may have a concern that these types of structures, as opposed to a single-family home, may decrease their property values. I would think that there should be some language in there pertaining to the exterior surfaces having a suitable finishing material, so we don't have buildings pieced together. You know, if we're gonna have these, they need to look good. I mean, I've seen some pretty useful buildings, and I've seen some really crappy ones.
Yeah.
And then it says, it talks about in the egg in the RC district shall not exceed 10%. Well, let me see, without a special use permit. Why limit the size in this district to 5,000 square feet? And not the R1 and R2 and R3, where parcels in egg and RC are often larger and might better support these types of structures. And also, I don't quite agree with the special use, because that's costly, that's engineered plans, it's a public hearing. And so, my suggestion would perhaps let the size of the lot determine the square footage of the building allowed. as opposed to having to have them come before the planning commission for a special use, because if this was allowed, I can see, you know, it might be pretty popular, and that might really bog down the planning commission, and also the township board, because special uses ultimately come to you.
Well, what happens if this person that puts up this, I don't know, ginormous pole barn with multiple doors for all his toys, decide, well, I don't need all this room, I'll just start renting it out to my buddies.
And that's what I said, how would we monitor it? It says
Yeah,
it's not
now
for,
you've got scattered throughout the
That-
township, a
That
bunch of
hap-
storage
That
buildings.
happened across from Eddie Lautner, if you guys remember. I don't know if you were coming to the board meetings then. And that was.
Yeah, down there in
That
Elmwood
white
Road.
building,
Yeah.
yeah, that's with all that bolt storage stuff, that's when my relative went through all that stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he had to cease doing that, and
Oh, that was for storage in there, where that gate
he was,
in there?
put that up, said,
Okay.
told the township to put it up just for his own use, well, then found out there was more bolts stored there outside, more were being brought in, the more they investigated, the zoning administrator, we found out it was for commercial.
Yeah, right, right.
But I have to be the devil's advocate a little bit here. I understand everything we're talking about here, but I think we're all about personal property rights too. 'Cause some of us might own a piece of land on the lake,
Right,
or we might own a piece of land over here, the lake wasn't a good example. We can't put a storage building there, but we do own another piece of land somewhere else that I would like to be able to put my storage, my stuff in it. It's a gray area,
so then
Yeah,
are you
look at
gonna
both sides.
limit?
Not everybody's a criminal,
that's
Right.
right.
and not everybody's gonna do what they don't say they do.
Cause I'm a big believer in personal property
Well,
rights.
so then are you gonna limit it to people who also have another primary use in the township?
And that's another point that PC talked about too, is property
Yeah.
rights.
I don't know.
that's why I think something with aesthetics definitely needs to be put in there, so it doesn't deteriorate your neighboring property value.
Right, right. And maybe to that size thing, you know, cause some people could have a pretty good sized piece of property. Maybe you
That was discussed quite a bit at the planning commission meetings, of putting a size restriction there on 1 acre, and it can only be so much percentage in
Yeah.
size in relationship to the
I think you put
property.
a size restriction for everything.
So
no
if
matter
I,
what size.
so if I own a piece of property on the lake next to these $500,000 homes, I can put up a pole barn right there, come out and party on the weekends, and these people on either side of me are not gonna be upset?
I wasn't
Think
talking
about
about
it.
the lake, I was
No.
talking about.
Well, no,
property
you
across the
can't
street.
limit it to where it's going to be, otherwise that's discrimination. If you're gonna allow it, you have to allow it everywhere, even in the upper echelon community.
Right, but the PC, this was discussing it because of how many are going to the ZBA.
There's not that, I'm on the ZBA, and there's not that many going to the ZBA. That is a false statement.
Eric.
The only ones that come to the ZBA, and we haven't had one in a long time, is people that live on the lake. They have a road that runs between them and the property they own. And usually it's a private drive, but it is separate parcel,
Mhm.
and they don't consider it contiguous
That's
because
what
of
I
the
was
road.
saying earlier.
So they come to the ZBA and ask if they can put their toy box over here. But they have a primary use right across the street, and most of the streets are not even paved, so it's like their driveway. But because of the rules, they have to come to the ZBA to get permission. That's what happens on the waterfront.
And that's what I said earlier.
But if we put this into play, they don't have to have that parcel across the street. They can put their pole barn, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
They can put their pole barn right on the waterfront, 50 feet from the lot.
And property too valuable for anybody to write money to do that.
Some people can't afford to put that house up but they can afford to buy the land, but maybe it's gonna be years, so they put that pole barn up first. And then they decide,
Vacant lots are left on any of the lakes around here.
Not very many.
There's some.
Susie Dean just sold 4 parcels right on the water. Farmland, gone.
There's a vacant parcel down on the end of Alpine too.
Yep. They're there, Paul.
Oh, there are, but there's not that many, but, no, I get everybody's point, but I still think it's a gray area that, your example's a good example, but it's one of the more rare ones that could happen, it can happen, but there are people out there that own, that don't have a big enough piece of property, but they own the property somewhere else, would like to build their own storage building.
People
And I
that
feel
already
for them.
have.
And I feel for them.
Well,
But
I guess I'd wanna see what the
Custer
planning commission
Township-
has to say about it all.
And remember that we put in place a process where we didn't want the planning commission, and I think Eric wanted to say something, and he's on the planning commission, maybe we could let him
Sure.
say something.
Yeah, just as a home builder in the community, I run into two scenarios fairly regularly in Whitewater Township and surrounding communities and counties. One is just what Paul's speaking about where, and it's particularly, the majority of the homes we build are waterfront, and oftentimes they're on smaller parcels, they'll buy a piece of property across the road, up the road, whatever, and want to store their toys there, and currently they can't. So that's one thing that we run into pretty commonly, and the other thing is, the order in which a home and a standalone accessory building, whatever we wanna call it, is built. Oftentimes, the preference of a landowner is to put that up first, and then put the house in. And presently in Whitewater Township, that's not allowed, from what I understand.
Actually, I think that is.
No.
You have to have a permit, though, you have to pull your land use permit for the house, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can't, but you have to pull your land use permit for your house,
Okay.
so you can do that.
How often, or how long, I mean, that's a 1-year permit, right?
I believe, how long is the permit?
1 year, and then, if you need some sort of extension, you can always come in and,
Is there a limitation to the extension?
I don't believe there says one in the ordinance.
That's
But it
all.
has to show that some sort of construction has commenced, or I believe it says you have to have a valid building permit.
Yeah, there was something in there, I thought, when we did that, to keep them from just keep renewing it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to show progress.
The valid building permit issued by Grand Traverse Board.
Yeah.
But I can assure you that the people that I'm dealing with that have run into this in the past are not putting up shacks and they're not living in them. They're not, I mean, these are legitimate people that, spend money in the community and are advocating, the use of their property in a reasonable and responsible manner.
Yeah, and I do understand that, but that's not all the parcels that are available out there.
I'm not saying that it is.
I mean, like Paul said, people with waterfront property tend to put up nice structures
Well, sure.
because they can afford it. But the guy that bought 5 acres out in the middle of nowhere, no.
But I think we can correct that, like Lindsay was saying, you can put some kind of, rules and regs on that too, what it's gotta look like.
So I really think that what the question is here right now is, do we want the planning commission to continue to work on this? And maybe with Lindsay's assistance, because remember we put in place a process whereby the planning commission just didn't run off and
Right.
get everything and ready for public hearing and all that. We said, we'd like you to bring these new things to us, and we're gonna see if that's something we want you working on. So I think that's kind of where it's at, right, Lloyd? That it
Yes.
has come here to see if the board wants the planning commission
to work on it.
to continue to work on it, or,
My own opinion, you're asking as a board member, I think that's a great idea, but I would like to see the planning commission include our zoning administrator in that.
More than happy.
That's what
We
we
would
hired the
insist on
zoning administrator for. And then, one other real quick, because we're discussing this before, we have a hand up in the audience, do we wanna take the question?
You guys should.
I think we need to move along because Della needs to go, it's 10 o'clock, and we've got one more thing, which I think is gonna be fairly
Okay,
quick.
well, you can hold it then, sorry, till public comment. Okay, so,
Picking and choosing.
is this just a consensus on this issue? We don't need to vote on this?
I don't think so. Is the consensus that, that the board would like, the planning commission to do some further work on this
Yes.
with the assistance of the zoning administrator?
Yes.
You guys know my feelings about this. And
Yeah,
I would like-
I'm not prejudging that it's gonna come back and go anywhere. I'm
Right.
just thinking if they can meet some of Lindsay's concerns, You know what I'm saying?
Well, I would just like to make sure that they do the research on the
Right.
pros and cons of this.
Absolutely.
You know, there's a reason it's not being done everywhere.
No, I'm not insinuating that it should come back and we should let it happen, but I think it should be.
But I don't wanna waste, my point is, Paul, is I don't wanna waste their time.
Well, maybe they should do the research first then.
Yeah.
Before they try to modify it to something that can be enforced. Because remember, you can have all the ordinance you want, but if the zoning administrator isn't able to enforce it,
Right,
why have it?
right. Well, I think you got a good idea what we wanna do as a planning commission, okay. Okay. Next topic.
It's the joint meeting proposal?
Yeah. You know, what, is that something that we wanna do while Ron's out on leave, or can we, or?
Well, first of all, he's proposing at the April, he says at the first April 2019 Township Board meeting, but remember, we're going to one meeting a month in April.
Right.
And I don't think we can have a joint meeting with the plan, because that's gonna be our, you know, it's, the
We'll
plan
have
is
to
it's
set
gonna
a
be our
special
own meeting. We have too much, we're gonna have too much going on to make that, to reschedule that to be a joint meeting, because a joint meeting has to be renoticed.
Well, it would take up that whole meeting basically too.
Yeah.
Well, and it might, and the thing of it is also is, I don't have any time to work on getting these reps here or anything like that. We have to get through budget,
Right.
we have to
Yeah.
get through, I mean, the board packet already for that meeting is, the deadline for it to go out is April 2nd, but I'm going to be out of town April 2nd. I'm planning on that board packet going out the Friday before, which is March 29th. So, today is March 12th. So we're talking 17 days. I don't have time to get this all organized. If we wanna set a special meeting for I would suggest that either, and then Lindsay's telling me that the planning commission may have some things coming up that are that we may not want to, as we did previously, reschedule one of their meetings for a special meeting. So I think it needs to be a special meeting, not trying to hit the planning commission date
Separate from both schedules.
in May either, because, they may be getting busy too.
That sounds good.
So-
Fine with me.
Why don't we just plan it as a special meeting and then just have the date to be announced when you know more about when you'll be ready?
Yeah, maybe I just can bring back, when I get some time to work on that. Because I don't know who I can get here. You know, these people are traveling from out of state.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, and quite frankly, I'm not really sure why. It sounded really, I took it Kim was the only one asking for a special meeting. I mean, she actually made a couple comments, I don't know why this is on the PC agenda, the board's gonna vote on this. So,
Well,
It was
exactly, what
discussed.
is the process for picking this company?
well, the board's gonna be choosing the company, but what I wanted, why I sent the proposal to the planning commission at whatever meeting it was of theirs, was so if they had questions, I was hoping they would have time to review the proposals, maybe they didn't, and have questions, and then I wanted the board to review them at one of our last meetings, I think it was on the 26th, and Ron said, no, I'm not putting that on the agenda. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get the quotes then. See, that's the other thing I would like to get before we have a joint meeting, because there's a kind of general consensus that we need to do the other ordinances too, and just get this all done.
I agree.
And so I need some time to contact those companies again and say, what do you need from me in order to give us a quote, revise your quote, to do everything? So maybe we just put this off for right now, and when I get more information, I can ask to have
Table
it
it
put
then?
on. I say we just table this
And I can
until,
also take back to them and clarify that we're needing questions from the PC as well, so they can have this ready.
well, you know, I mean,
Part of the reason
if they
why.
wanna ask the questions at the joint meeting, you know, I don't have a problem with that. Now, Kim said, get a joint meeting with one rep here. Why one? I mean,
It sounds to me like she wants us to pick out the rep, have a
Right.
joint meeting, then they can ask their questions of the rep.
yeah,
So,
That's true.
how is the board going to pick out of the three?
well, we just have to review the proposals, and what I was suggesting was that the board reviews the proposals. What are your questions? I go get the questions answered from the reps through email, bring those back, or do you wanna interview the reps? I mean, they're not the ones that are gonna be doing it, the work. They're just bringing the business into the company. But I mean, they can show us, but they've already given us, you know, what,
We have
30-page
three
proposals or
proposals.
something? Yes,
All three proposals are quite large,
Yes.
quite lengthy,
right.
Lots of verbiage.
almost identical in many ways.
There's a few things some do and some don't, but
Right.
not
Right.
many.
I mean, what's your thought?
I guess my thought is that I would like to take a member of the board, a member of the planning commission to go through those quotes, put together a list of qualities and things we don't like, and make a recommendation.
Like a subcommittee.
Yes. I think that would work best, because otherwise you've got all the planning commission members, all the board members, sitting around talking about,
You'll be like a bunch of farmers, you'll never agree on anything.
it'd be like
Are you volunteering?
picking apples, one apple at a time.
I think that the subcommittee is a good idea.
I'm just, that way the board's involved, the planning commission's
Are you
involved.
volunteering yourself as a board member?
I didn't say that.
That's what I kind
I'm
of,
not
what I
saying
heard.
Well, then who are you volunteering?
I was thinking Cheryl.
Cheryl's got a lot to do.
Yeah, I do,
So
actually.
does the treasurer.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not gonna be this board member.
Well, this issue is about, a joint meeting, and I say I think maybe we just start looking at the proposals again, and I don't think we're gonna look at them at our first meeting in January, or in, April. You know, I don't know about that, but,
Is there a time constraint on it?
well, I think we wanna get going on it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's gonna be a multi-month process for them to do that.
It takes a while for
It
it to
does
happen.
take a while, and then
I
it
think
takes,
you could say 180 days in one of them.
yeah, I believe so. So, I mean, I would like to get it going, but, you know, I mean, right now, we're swamped,
So
You
just
know,
table it,
and,
so
yeah, I say we just bring this back for.
Yeah, I think they said the whole process takes a year.
table it till the next meeting or April meeting?
Maybe we discuss it again on April 9th,
That's fine.
the possibility of a joint meeting.
Okay,
Let's do that.
alright. Is that good with you, Dell?
Yep.
Okay.
So consensus was reached to add discussion of a possible joint meeting to the 4-9 agenda.
Yes. That brings us to tabled items.
They shall remain tabled.
Remain tabled,
Alright.
now we're at L, which is board comments and discussion. I have just one thing, I didn't wanna bring it up and back. When you said about so many days to get the agenda out, remember when you said that a minute ago? Can you clarify what we decided when we went back to, that was part of our reasoning?
Yes, what we decided was that board packets were going to go out 5 business days before a meeting, so in other words, the Tuesday before.
Okay.
And that the clerk and the supervisor finalize the agenda 8 business days before the meeting, which is the 2 Thursdays before the Tuesday meeting. So for instance, for the April 9th meeting, we have to finalize the agenda on, I believe it's March 28th. March 28th, the agenda has to be finalized, and really, we didn't say this, but I need I'll have my documents, and Ron needs to have whatever his documents are too, because, you know, the latest that the agenda is going, and the packet is going out is 5 business days before the meeting. I might want it out on Friday. So, when we finalize the agenda, I mean, like, maybe noon on Friday or something, but see, generally I don't work on Fridays. So I don't wanna be forced to be down here on a Friday to get a packet out, and in the case of this one, I'm gonna be gone on I'm gonna be out of the office the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So, you know, I mean, maybe I can send it out on Monday, but that doesn't mean I wanna get the documents on Monday. Okay, when I mean we're gonna finalize the agenda, I mean I get the documents that day too, whatever he's got to put in the packet.
Well, the reason I asked that question is just for Ron's sake, so you understand.
Right.
I don't know if you were at that meeting when we made all that, just so you understood that.
I don't know if
Because-
it was him.
When we went back to one meeting and the reason why. and-
Yep,
So you understand why we're doing that. I posed that question so you understood.
yeah, I do.
And a reminder to Ron too, because we tend to forget that we're going back to one meeting.
Right.
So, just a little reminder what has to take place.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing no other board comments.
We might just wanna mention under announcements that there's a special meeting tomorrow night at 6.
Yep,
There's a special meeting on the 18th at 6, and there's a regular meeting on March 26th, which starts at 7 PM, which includes the budget public hearing.
okay.
I don't know if there's any other announcements, but I
I
don't
don't
make
know.
sure we gave
Anybody else?
those out.
So that brings us to public comment. Nobody has any?
Yeah, just go up there
From the
on.
podium, state your name and address, please.
My name is Thomas Chudinski, and I live at 702 Cook Road in Williamsburg, and I'd like to make a comment on the event bar. We've been going around and around with this, and in my view, the word farmer has always been used, the word historic has always been used, and yet, that's what caused all this to start with, is that there is no definition of historic. Is it a historic barn? Is it a 5-year-old barn? Is it a 100-year barn? What is that? But that's mentioned right here, and that's what got all of us upset, is that property on Cook Road, across from where we live, the word farmer was used, historic structure, similar structure was used, and yet that property had no barn, had no any agricultural, hasn't been a farm for 30 years. And all of a sudden, this application goes through to put a structure on there. It has to be built, it's not built yet. And yet
No
that was,
application ever went through. No
the application,
applications
well,
ever
what were you
submitted.
talking about for a whole year? We didn't even find out about this for a year.
Exactly.
That,
What they were doing was asking the planning commission to come up with language to allow event barns.
okay.
They were not, they never ever made an application to
Point of order.
put an event barn. I'm
Point of
sorry.
order.
It's
Public
it's
comments.
It's public comments, if we can't talk, you can't talk, I'm sorry, Mrs. Clerk.
Well, okay, but
Well, then
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I just wanna remind you, I didn't wanna interrupt you, we can take your comment, but we can't address it.
Yes.
That's
Thank
right now,
you.
but we can at the next meeting.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, well, sure.
Fair enough?
Yeah, and so with this, that's what's upset all of us, is that the words, again, historic was used with us, word farmer, and yet this property across is asking for an application. Well, through this whole process, I can even see here from the survey that I probably would object to the first part of this saying typically events are historic agricultural barns. Well, are we going to adhere to what's the definition of historic barn? Is it my view would be that if I got this in the mail, I would think of a 100-year-old barn, like a 100-year-old historic structure, and that's what I would make my basis on. And yet here it says typically. Typically, well, what if it's not typically? Like the property across from us is not typical, there's no barn on there, there's no farming going on. And so everybody's gonna view this survey as what everybody is saying here, a farmer who needs to convert this barn that's 100 years old to a thing, and they're gonna fill out this survey according to that. So, that would be my comment.
Okay, thank you.
Allow me to 371 New Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. I think we leave the age off the survey. If you can't ask somebody how old they are to apply for a job, don't ask them on a survey. I would think a job's a heck of a lot more important than a survey, and does it really matter how old they are? Is that gonna change your decision by an age? I highly doubt it. Most people don't wanna tell you how old they are anyways. My second comment is, the clerk made a comment, we're gonna be careful, we'll tie our hands. I was curious what you meant by that, to the structure building. And my other question is, what are you gonna do about the people that already have one? Are you gonna grandfather that in? Because there are people that already have them in this township. So it's a question to be thought of, but if it's gonna go to the plan commission, I'd like to see something on grandfathering in structures that are already there. Thank you.
Mark Hamilton, 1330 Hirsch Road. I just wanted to weigh in on the standalone structure issue. Please take the time to, research that or do what you need to do. I think it is a viable option. I can see all the different points on both sides as far as, God forbid somebody builds just a hideous barn next to, whether or not it would happen, next to a lake house, and nobody wants to see that. But in our instance, we have multiple different parcels where it would be nice if we have a 30-acre parcel, for instance, where my grandfather used to sell Christmas trees, donate all the money to the church. Well, it was agricultural, now it's owned recreational, and it's our biggest tax bill on that property, but it would be nice to have a barn there where we could, start to possibly farm that, or remove those trees and start doing something, maybe have animals or something, so that we're not just paying a large amount of taxes on property that we don't have easy access to, or we have to keep equipment at another location just to take down there, so, thank you.
Yeah, it's already recreational.
But can I just ask you, are you referring to the standalone storage building?
Yes,
then?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any other public comment? All right,